Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from YourBlackWorld.com, and I'm here today with a political science scholar that I have a lot of respect for. You've seen me mention him on numerous occasions, even during times where he doesn't know that I'm mentioning him. I mention him because I think that he's my go-to guy when it comes to political science. Since Ron Walters died, and I don't know how to do a seance. Which no disrespect to the dead, I'm being silly here. I turned to Dr. Wilmer Leon at Howard University because he can help me understand this ever-changing political climate that we're in as a community and how we can best process what's happening around us. And so first I want to ask, how are you today, Dr. Leon?
I'm doing great, and I'm always humbled whenever I'm put in not even a paragraph, but on the same page or book with Dr. Walters, so thank you.
Well, Ron, I'm sure wants somebody to take his place. He seemed to communicate that before he passed, and so I think that even though his shoes are far bigger than any of us can fill, maybe all together we can fill his left foot, right?
There you go.
So I called you recently because Tom Joyner from the Tom Joyner Morning Show wrote one of the most interesting articles I've ever seen him write, where he was saying some of the most interesting things I've ever heard him say with regard to Cornel West and Tavis Smiley. And in the article, Tom, he obviously has a major issue with Cornel and Tavis. I mean, he ends the article by saying that neither one of them can ever do anything with me or for me ever again, which is really strong language. He throws in language that seems to imply he refers to Cornel as Tavis's side piece. He says side piece, I mean sidekick. Now, when I think of side piece, I'm thinking about somebody that you're fornicating with, which is a heavy, sort of statement for him to drop. And then he goes on to compare Cornel West and Tavis Smiley's critiques of the Obama administration to the statements made by Mark Halperin from MSNBC, where he called President Obama a dick. And that's the last time I'm going to say the word dick during this video cast, because I'm not going to just continuously repeat the word dick on video. So anyway, so now that we've got that out of our system, I want to ask you, Dr. Leon, give me your take on this.
Well, there are a couple of things. One, to the reference, Tom's alluding to Tavis and or Cornel's sexuality. Way off base, incredibly childish, and totally unnecessary. And I agree with you that making that reference, especially the way that he did, side piece, side kick, wink, wink, ha, ha. I fail to find the humor in that. His making the statement that Tavis will, never do anything with me again. I have a D word for Tavis, and it's done. It's one thing to say that to Tavis personally. I think it's another thing to put it in print, because one thing that I have learned, my parents tried to teach me this, and it took me years to understand it, is you never say never. And who knows what event might bring the two of them into the same space to deal with the same issue, whether it's Tom Joyner drowning and Tavis being in the boat having the opportunity to save him. We don't know. And so you never, and I have no idea from behind the scenes what brought Tom to this point. So, but particularly in print, I think to write something like that is incredibly childish and immature. In terms of saying that Tavis and Cornel have laid the groundwork for the Mark Halperins of the world is, to me, to ignore a history, a very recent history of a barrage of cartoons and statements that white media has been making about this president even before he was president. I mean, you have the New York Post cartoon that portrayed the president as a chimpanzee, and where the police had shot this chimpanzee, and the caption was, now they'll have to find somebody else to sign the stimulus bill. You've got the New Yorker magazine back in 2008, where their cover was a caricature of President Obama dressed as a Muslim terrorist and Michelle Obama dressed as a black revolutionary with an M16 rifle in her hand and a picture of Osama bin Laden on the wall. You've got the comment by Joe Wilson. You lie. A white member of Congress would never say that to a white president. You've got during the campaign, what's his name? Mike Huckabee made the joke when, I don't know if you remember during the campaign, when President Obama, there was noise behind candidate Obama, Senator Obama, and he flinched when he heard the noise. And then the next day, Mike Huckabee at an NRA campaign says that, Obama flinched because he thought somebody was taking a shot at him. Making light of the assassination of the first potential black president was totally what I'm doing is just showing there's a history here. And Peter King, Congressman Peter King from New York, has said that President Obama is the most threatened president in the history of this country. So Tom's comment or statement, to me, totally ignores the history from which Halperin's comment comes from. Tavis and Cornel had absolutely nothing to do with laying that groundwork.
Yeah, I thought that what Tom did, it was a little bit disappointing. I felt that he obviously, it goes beyond being unprofessional. I think that it goes deeper than that. I think that you're laying out a lot of dirty laundry that doesn't need to be laid out there. I think that to somehow imply that critiquing the president, is opening the door for racists and Republicans and Tea Partiers. That's kind of a tired argument. I think that people can critique President Obama or the Democrats or the Obama administration without somehow being aligned with all things that hate Obama. That's kind of silly. And I think that to some extent you can accuse Tom a little bit of bullying people into silence, into giving up their democratic rights. And I'm not going to stand for that. You're not going to bully me into shutting my mouth. I'm going to use my voice. So, now in terms of him dealing with Tavis and Cornel, I think that Tom, I don't know. I read the article really wondering, has Tom lost it? Is he expecting to die soon? And he's just like, I don't care. I'm gonna lay it out there. Has he gone Bill Cosby on us? Where Cosby's kind of gotten to that point where he doesn't care anymore. I didn't understand it. I just think that it was so tragic. It was so sad for all of us to read this distinguished figure, making these really childish remarks about somebody that he was once very close with. And so I don't know. I don't even know how I'm going to deal with Tom, when we cross paths again, because I just think that he's crossed a line that you can't come back from that, really.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think he now takes himself too seriously, and he's reading too many of his press clippings. Obviously, the commas and the zeros in his bank account, he equates that with relevance. He has allowed, in my opinion, his personal issues to now impact practical reality. And he's making that practical impractical. What he did makes no sense. His beef with Tavis or with Cornel should have been left with Tavis and or Cornel. Our circumstance in this country as African Americans is so serious, is so tenuous, that we don't have time in the public space for petty, personal, childish behavior. And what Tom did has absolutely nothing to do with policy. And if it has nothing to do with policy, it is a waste of time, breath, airspace, and effort.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that Tom, it's interesting because it's so interesting how he actually goes out of his way to call Tavis Smiley a sellout. I mean, he uses the word sellout. I mean, people can read all this on Your Black World. They can read my response. They can read what Tom said, et cetera. And it's interesting to me because, I never accuse anybody of being a sellout just because you work with corporate America to amplify your voice. I understand that. I'm a business school professor. But, I'm like, well, wait a minute, Tom. You've been bringing us, activism brought to you by McDonald's for the last 20 years. And Walmart and all these other corporations. And I remember I was absolutely disgusted when I was on the Tom Joyner Morning Show and I was actually talking about the Heather Ellis case that you and I worked on in 2009 with the young black girl that they were trying to send to prison for 15 years because she cut in line at a Walmart. And, I was just sickened by the way Tom defended Walmart, like the last slave on Master's porch with the broom, and had no problem seeing this girl get thrown down the river, for something that shouldn't have justified the punishment that they were trying to put on her. And he was doing this, I believe, because Walmart was paying the bills. I mean, I've never been pushed off a radio show that fast. Where that's like, you know what I'm talking about, brother. You have a show where they start playing the music, and then when you keep talking, they turn the music up. It freaked me out. And I remember when I wrote an article about it. And my point on the whole conversation was, going back to my book, Black American Money, where I was basically talking about how we have to be very careful as a community when you talk about black public figures or people who have a voice. We have to be careful about who we take our money from, because ultimately money can sometimes liberate you, but sometimes it can also enslave you. And I wrote a piece about that, and I used this interview as an example. And I didn't just let people, I didn't try to manipulate anybody's mind. I didn't try to tell them to think what I want them to think. I said, look, here's the interview. Listen to it for yourself and tell me what you think. And people could hear that clearly Tom's position had been modified by his relationship with Wilmer, or at least it appeared to be. And I remember Roland Martin was so upset with me about writing this article. I mean, he sent me like, one of those long text messages that you get where it's so long that it doesn't fit in one message, and you look and you got 8 or 9 messages on your phone. I mean, Roland was upset about this, but I said, look, Roland, I respect you and I respect Tom, but this girl's life is more important than your damn contract with Walmart, period. And then on top of that, because Walmart had done so many things that just really angered me. The girl got slammed.
That most people don't realize.
Right. She got slammed to the concrete coming out of the store, and Walmart lost the videotape. Give me a damn break. So anyway, this isn't just about Walmart, but my point is that I could let that go to a point. Even though I was upset about it, I didn't keep harping on it. But for you to turn and look at Tavis and him, and his decision to sell books and sell products and say, oh, well, he's a sellout and I'm not. Give me a damn break. I mean, both of y'all are selling something, in your quest to get rich and to do what you're going to do. But I don't think that detracts significantly from your ability to do righteous work. I respect that. But don't stand there as the pot calling the kettle black. That's just stupid to me. Give me your take. I'll let you get the last word.
No. You're absolutely right. And to be balanced and fair, and I have said this on your show and said it a number of places, the personal attacks that, when then Senator Obama did not come to Tavis's State of Black America, and when Tavis went off on him for not doing so, Tavis was wrong. Tavis was childish. Tavis was stupid for the manner in which he handled that. When Cornel made the personal attacks on MSNBC and other places about questioning the president's ability to deal with free black men, that was wrong, that was stupid, that was childish. The personal attacks have absolutely no basis or place in the dialogue. But the issues that relate to policy are fair game. And those are the things that we need to keep in the forefront. And those are the things that we've got to challenge, because that's what Dr. King was about. He was about policy.
That's right. And what's really interesting is you really look at, Tom's letter. And again, this is with all due respect to the people who agree with Tom. Like, I just talked to Warren Ballantyne, who agrees with Tom. He feels that Cornel, by referring to President Obama as a mascot, that he opened that door to people making these baseless remarks about the president. And I can't.
Well, actually, just for the record, President Obama said to Reverend Sharpton, if you're not careful and you side yourself with the oligarchs, you will be perceived as a mascot for them.
He said that to Sharpton?
That's what, yeah, he said that to Sharpton on the MSNBC piece when they had that big verbal shootout on MSNBC on Ed Schultz show.
Oh, you're talking about what Cornel said that to Sharpton. I thought you said Obama said that to Sharpton.
No.
Okay.
Cornel said to Sharpton during that MSNBC piece, if you're not careful and you continue to side with these, I'm paraphrasing, if you continue to side with these policies of the oligarchs, you will be held out as their mascot. That's where that came from.
Very interesting. No, I think that's an important point of clarity. I think at the end of the day, what's so interesting to me about Tom's letter or his article or whatever that thing was,
diatribe.
This diatribe. Is that he didn't mention policy at all. There was no conversation about the issues. It was all about how Tavis is a sellout. Tavis and Cornel is Tavis's side piece. They'll never work for me again. It was very self-centered and egomaniacal to a point. And I think, or at least that's the way it can be perceived. And I think that what's very interesting to me about this, and I mentioned this in my piece, that, when people can't debate you on the issues, they simply try to discredit you and eliminate you from the conversation. And that's what you're really seeing. I mean, I have yet to see anybody from the Obama administration or anybody from any of the camps that have a problem with Cornel West. I've yet to see any of them step forward and say, here's evidence to say that you're wrong, because they can't prove them wrong. The best efforts I've seen so far have come from Sharpton and Melissa Harris Perry, who did try to present evidence, but I felt that it was watered down evidence at best, because unfortunately they're in the position of defending something that is very difficult to defend. And so ultimately, the truth sets you free. And I think to some extent you can argue Cornel does have a certain amount of truth on his side. So it's really in this conversation a matter of really just sort of seeing the lesser of two evils. I mean, the bottom line is that as a community, we're being told you need to support this administration, because if you don't, the Republicans will take over and have power. And you don't want that to happen. And so I compare that.
And you don't want that to happen.
You really don't. You don't. But what's so interesting to me, though, is that it's almost like offering somebody a choice for dinner between, rotten eggs and horse manure. And somebody may say, you know what, I'd rather just starve to death. Or I'll go try to learn how to cook on my own or whatever. I don't have to choose the choices you're laying out before me, which is kind of the age-old political problem that all of us face in this society, in which everything is stacked in favor of the wealthy and the powerful and the Harvard graduates. I mean, have you noticed, and this is a little bit of a tangent, I'm not going to go into this too much, but have you noticed that the entire Supreme Court is full of Harvard and Yale graduates now?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And have you noticed the direction that the court has gone as it relates to supporting oligarchs and banksters and corporate America?
Yeah, absolutely. So really all of them are playing on the same team. And I just read an article the other day, and it's on Your Black World if people want to look at it, where that basically this has been the most lopsided economic recovery in American history, in terms of how the wealthy and corporations have benefited, and the poor and the working class have still suffered. Their wages have not gone up, and poor people are still suffering as much as they did during the height of the recession, even though the recession technically ended 2 years ago. So this is more complex than we might think. But I'll let you get the last few sentences in. I know I went off a little bit, but did you have anything else to say, Dr. Leon?
Well, just quickly, I mean, everything you said is absolutely right. We are witnessing the greatest transference of wealth from the working and middle class in this country up to the upper and wealthy in this country in the history of this country. As it relates to the Supreme Court, when the president had nominated Ms. Sotomayor, no African Americans had been interviewed. when he nominated Elena Kagan. No African Americans had been interviewed. And this is what we're talking about. That represents policy. And to your point about horse manure or rat poison, in the words of that famous African American philosopher James Brown, I'd rather die on my feet than keep living on my knees. I'm done.
I love it. All right. Well, there you go. And people who come to Your Black World, they know that that's what we're all about. We're about progressive action, progressive thought. And my goal is not to lead you. My goal is to convince you to lead yourself. And my goal is not to think for you. It's to convince you to think for yourself, because you are your own greatest black leader, and nobody can afford to sit on the sidelines. Well, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I want to say thank you very much, Dr. Leon. It was great speaking to you.
Pleasure.
And his show is Inside the Issues. Inside the Issues with Wilmer Leon. And what's the channel?
Sirius XM satellite channel 128. And also, if folks would go to my Facebook fan page, Dr. Leon's Prescription. Go to Dr. Leon's Prescription on Facebook and like the page for me, trying to increase the folks that go to the page.
All right. Okay, well, you got the prescription, and please keep coming back to yourblackworld.com. I'm glad you guys support us, and please continue to do so. Until we meet again, stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. I'm gone. Peace.